Horace Charles Luttman. His outstanding dedication, expertise, and energies contributed to the founding of the Canadian Aeronautics and Space Institute, CASI, and through the decades from its inception in the 1950s to his retirement in 1973, he led the creation of a strong, effective, and internationally respected organization of aeronautical engineers and scientists greatly benefiting aviation in Canada. Charles Luttman was born on May 30th, 1908 in Banbury, England. As a child, he and his family enjoyed spending time at Frankfield House, his grandparents' home, which was in close proximity to his parents' home. He was educated at Marlborough College and graduated from Cambridge University in 1930 with a BA degree in mechanical science with an option in aerodynamics. As a young adult, he was passionately interested in cars and built at least 2 of them from parts of other cars. In 1934, Charles Luttman married Jean Morrison in Oxford, England. They had 1 daughter, Rachel Mary. After working for several aviation companies in England, Luttman moved to California in 1938 when he was sent there by the British Ministry of Supply. He worked as resident inspector at North American Aviation to oversee the production of the Harvard trainer for the Royal Air Force. In 1940, he and Jean attended the celebration commemorating the delivery of the 100th Harvard to the RAF. Luttman contributed to the design of a new fighter aircraft, the Mustang, while in California. Even though the aircraft was only at the conceptual stage, the British government ordered 400 Mustang fighters. Luttman and his family moved to Washington, D.C. in 1940 when he was transferred to the headquarters of the newly formed British Air Commission. The Royal Air Force was in desperate need of planes produced at U.S. aircraft plants, and Luttman was supervisor of the BAC inspectors stationed at these plants. He returned to England in 1945. However, he did not find his work with the British Ministry of Supply very challenging. He returned to Cambridge and in 1947 received his master's degree in mechanical sciences. That same year, the family emigrated to Ottawa. He soon found employment with AV Row Canada Limited, first as a patents officer and later as contracts administrator. Luttman joined the Toronto branch of the Institute of Aeronautical Sciences, IAS. The IAS later became the American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics. In May of 1949, the Toronto group proposed the formation of an aeronautical section of the Engineering Institute of Canada. Early in 1952, Royal Aeronautical Society members in Toronto, Montreal, and Ottawa, and AIS members met with Luttman and Ian Hamer, co-chairman of the Toronto AIS branch. These 2 men were part of a subcommittee charged with soliciting ideas about the desirability of forming a Canadian organization. Luttman became a member of the steering committee with a mandate to create a Canadian Aeronautical Institute. He contributed significantly to deliberations, the preparation of a survey questionnaire, and to drafting the constitutional bylaws. After the incorporation of the Canadian Aeronautical Institute in 1954, the steering committee served as an interim council until elections were held. Luttman applied for the position of secretary, and there was no hesitation to appoint him, since his deep commitment to the Institute was well known. Although his formal job title was secretary, Luttman also performed the function of treasurer, and he played a leading role in planning, organizing, and running the annual meetings. In addition, he was the editor of the Institute's publications. In 1959, Luttman traveled to Baddeck, Nova Scotia, in preparation for the CAI annual meeting. He was scouting for a place to erect the proposed CAI memorial commemorating the 1909 flight of the Silver Dart. The estate of Alexander Graham Bell was chosen as the location for the memorial. While in Baddeck, Luttman learned that a certain Lilo Mueller was also there. In his youth, Luttman had studied French in Switzerland as a guest of the Mueller family. By 1959, Mueller was working as an artist and had married the granddaughter of Alexander Graham Bell. Mueller agreed to submit a design for the memorial, which was approved by the CAI Council. The memorial was unveiled on the lawn of the Bell Museum in the presence of McCurdy, who was the pilot of the 1909 flight. One of Charles Luttman's early assignments as secretary of the CAI was to establish new branches in other centers of aeronautical activity. When test pilots in Canada were considering the formation of their own society, he convinced them to form a test pilot section of the Canadian Aeronautical Institute instead. Other sections followed, but the one which had the greatest impact was the astronautics section of the CAI, which formed in 1958. It attracted the attention of Philip Lapp, the president of the Canadian Astronautical Society, who suggested a merger with the Institute. This merger took place in 1961, and the Canadian Aeronautics and Space Institute, CASI, was incorporated. This resulted in a substantial increase in members and affiliation with the International Astronautical Federation. Then the decision was made to attract students to the Institute. Luttman canvassed universities and colleges across Canada, and soon a student section was established in every branch location. These sections enabled the Institute to assist in the professional development of thousands of Canadian technicians and engineers. Luttman managed the affairs of the Institute exceptionally well for over 20 years. This earned him the respect and esteem of the 19 presidents and councillors he served. His experience, expertise, and reliability of judgment were essential to each succeeding president. He was called the heart and soul, the mind and hands of the Institute. He believed in the importance of sharing technical achievement and had a strong commitment to professional ethics. Not only was he dedicated and enthusiastic, but he was also thorough and meticulous. He believed in fellowship, and he maintained close and friendly contact with his peers at the various institutes and societies. Although his professional endeavors with CASI kept Luttman busy, he also made time to participate in the design of a small man-powered flying machine called an ornithopter. In the 1960s, he worked with others to build this model and fly it. Luttman's professionalism was recognized in 1972 when he was awarded membership in the Sigma Gamma Tau, which is the U.S. National Honor Society in aerospace engineering. His family was very proud of his accomplishments, such as when he was named Fellow of the Royal Aeronautical Society and Associate Fellow of the American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics. He was also awarded the Canadian Centennial Medal, and CASI established a scholarship in his name. When Charles Luttman retired in 1973, he and Jean moved back to Kent, England, to his cottage, Rosecrest. He had become a Canadian citizen in 1955, and he demonstrated his Canadian pride by decorating his lawn with a 30-foot roundel of gravel with a maple leaf carved in the center. Although living in England, the couple made frequent trips to Canada and the U.S. to visit their daughter, grandchildren, and many friends. Luttman died at Seal Chart, England, on April 17, 2001. Charles Luttman was inducted as a member of Canada's Aviation Hall of Fame at the induction ceremonies in Wetaskiwin, Alberta, on May 30, 2009.